What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and tonight we're going to be talking about some early gameplay for Season 3 Reloaded, a preview of some additional content coming, plus even more. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like, and as a reminder, there's plenty of brand new article coverage going up over on dkdynamite.com for those who want to read up a little bit more on multiplayer, Warzone and Zombies, CDL, ranked, loadouts, Warzone Mobile, plus we got plenty of tweets every single hour on Detonated's Twitter. Now, I'm fully well aware that this upcoming week, we're going to be seeing some new marketing for the mid-season 3 update. The marketing should be dropping somewhere from Wednesday to Friday, so like April 24th to like the 26th. They could do marketing a little bit later on the Monday before May 1st, which is when the mid-season is set to begin. Who actually knows? But I did post a full news roundabout Reloaded a couple of days ago, detailing everything you need to know about what is coming to multiplayer, Warzone, and Zombies. Now, there's a couple of things though that are going to be releasing with Season 3 Reloaded, which you can already get a pretty good glimpse of, since some of the features coming are from previous COD titles, and some leakers out there over on Twitter did also post some early showcases for some content that is yet to come. But first up, we have the Enhanced Vision Goggles, a brand new fuel upgrade that should be coming to both multiplayer and Warzone. You know for sure it'll be an MP, but I'm sure they'll probably slide this into Warzone either with Reloaded or at some point maybe early in Season 4. You'll likely be unlocking this fuel upgrade through the Armory system, which will mean that you hop into the game and you have to complete 3, 5, or maybe even 7 multiplayer matches to go ahead and get enough Armory credits to go ahead and unlock this new fuel upgrade. That's all the brand new gear and equipment did release with the start of Season 3. But we then have the new Foresight kill streak, which is going to be exclusive to Warzone and does reveal all gas circles in the game. This is already featured in Warzone 1's era of maps, so I'll put some footage on screen of what this did look like. It's the exact same streak. Again, just giving you a good heads up as to where all the gas circles are going to be. You could of course do contracts to go ahead and reveal upcoming circles, but this reveals all of them at once, so definitely going to be very useful for matches of Battle Royale and even Resurgence. But moving on to the weapon trade stations, got a nice image of this from the recent blog post, and they look identical to the ones that we saw in Warzone 1. They were specifically added to Rebirth Reinforced during Vanguard's era, so no surprise they're going to look very similar here in the new version of Rebirth. So the way they worked in Warzone 1 is probably how they're also going to work again here inside of Season 3 Reloaded. So if you trade in weapons at these stations, you'll get rewards like cash, armor plates, self-revives, kill streaks, and maybe even more. There were specialist bonuses, I believe, if you go ahead and went ahead and traded a very high rarity weapon at these stations back in the day. So maybe because we're getting specialist perk packages added in Season 3 Reloaded, we'll also be able to get one by going ahead and exchanging maybe a redacted weapon if you go ahead and get one of those from the biometric key cards. Now this is really straightforward. The higher the rarity of the item you trade, the higher the reward is going to be. So I bet the footage that we can already see of these in action in Warzone 1 is identical, like 1-to-1 to what they're going to look like here inside of the new iteration of Warzone. But I also want to move on to the Jack Revenger real quickly, the new aftermarket part for the BP50, which I know on Detonated we've been referring to it as the Ripper because it looks very similar to the Ripper that we saw back during COD Ghost. And if you guys remember correctly, the Ripper was a hybrid between an assault rifle and an SMG. That's exactly what this Jack Revenger kit is for the BP50. It kind of converts into an SMG of some sort, since you can fire 9mm rounds. It's much more compact and much more mobile than the regular version of this assault rifle. So the funny thing about this is that this should be getting released the same day that marketing does drop for Reloaded on Wednesday, April 24th. Now marketing could be pushed back like I said earlier, but this should be the next aftermarket part that's going to be dropping, and I'll of course cover this in depth when it does end up releasing via the weekly challenge system. But you can actually find the Jack Revenger kit a bit early over in Zombies. I'm not sure what the RNG is to go ahead and pull this thing, but there are several videos on YouTube of many players out there finding this randomly in the mystery box, so I'll put as much footage as I can, and I'll credit the YouTubers that posted some clips. The thing looks like a lot of fun, definitely does some high damage in some of the higher threat zones depending on if you use a crystal or if you pack a punch the thing. It looks like a lot of fun, but there's also some leaked footage online of this being force loaded into Warzone Mobile. The usual data miners and hackers have gone ahead and taken a bit of Reloaded content or just upcoming content in general and threw it into their games early. So they went ahead and posted gameplay previews on Twitter that did not get taken down, so should be safe to show you as much as I can here inside of this video. Now what's really cool is that Jackson over on Twitter, who has been posting several pieces of leaked content over the last couple of months, he went ahead and shared some footage of the Infil strikes coming to Rebirth Island with our mid-season update. Now unless they end up dropping these a week before Reloaded on April 24th, then it looks like these will finally be added with the launch of Reloaded on May 1st. So there's going to be 3 total Infil strikes on Rebirth. The first one's going to be hitting the roof, which there isn't any footage of, but you can see a nice glimpse of this Infil strike in the recent trailer. The other 2 do have gameplay though. First off, the water tower. So upon destroying the water tower, you'll see a pretty cool looking point of interest change for this area of the map. Pretty cool to see how these work. Again, as a reminder, these info streaks will be rare, will not occur in every single match, and there's no telling how rare these actually are. I mean, there's probably a very low chance any one of these does happen, but I do believe these will happen at the very beginning of your game, if they're going to happen at all, and probably won't be later in your match. During a Season 3 creator call, it was revealed to us creators that depending on how the community responds to these info strikes will determine if the likeliness of them happening will end up increasing over the course of Season 3 and then future seasons to come. But we next up have the Lighthouse Infil strike. So this one's probably my favorite, since upon the lighthouse being destroyed, it will create a ramp where you can take vehicles onto the roof with. That looks crazy, and again, I have no issue with either the lighthouse or the water tower being shot down, since there's plenty of camping opportunities for players to annoy you with, and upon destroying one of these spots, I mean, that just eliminates a camping position that could actually alter your gameplay if you're on the roof having a good time and you might get sniped in the back or something. So I'm actually not opposed to these info strikes at all, and spices things up, right? I do respect the fact that they released the map in its classic state with Season 3. It's classic Rebirth as we know it from old school Resurgence, but now to really spice things up, I'm down for some RNG events happening every now and again, since I was a big fan of dynamic map elements that we saw during Call of Duty Ghosts. Now real quick, this wasn't announced, but what are the odds as I was recording extra B-roll for this video, the info strike for the lighthouse ended up happening in my game. So I'm gonna assume these are meant to be announced once Reloaded gets marketed next week, or once Reloaded actually begins on May 1st. Not sure what's going on with that. Maybe they had an intention to slowly roll these out before the mid-season, but I know they were described as a mid-season update over in our creator call, but sometimes there's confusion in blog posts and on roadmaps with what is in season and what's going to be released during mid-season. But yeah, let me know if you guys have experienced any of these info strikes down below. But I also want to take you through a bit of a walkthrough of Checkpoint. This is a brand new map coming to 6v6 multiplayer with our mid-season update. It's the first time a section of Rebirth has been taken and put into a multiplayer experience, whether it's 2v2 gunfight, 6v6 multiplayer, ground war. I would also love to see some ground war support for Resurgence maps like Vandal, Ashika, or even Rebirth here. I'd love to see that at some point, but we do have the Stronghold point of interest that isn't that popular, at least in my opinion, and that's going to be turned into a 6v6 multiplayer map, which I'm going to give you guys a bit of a walkthrough of, since there's some folks out there that might not play that much Warzone, but will end up jumping into multiplayer. This is what the multiplayer map will be laid out like. Obviously, there'll be adjustments made here and there to accommodate for the fact that it's 6v6 and not a big 40+ player Resurgence match, but the layout will generally be around the same. There might be a couple of extra mantling points here and there, or a couple of closed doors, or some area of debris here and there, but it's generally the same environment that you can see over in the Stronghold point of interest over on Rebirth. Now, it's funny because when Season 3 first got announced, I was like, wait a second, is this the first time we're seeing Resurgence maps turn into multiplayer experiences? And I completely spaced out about the fact that Modern Warfare 2 ended up adding in a couple of sections from Vandal. We saw a map or two for gunfight. We saw, I think, 2 maps for 6v6. So I'm totally on board with them doing that. Doesn't bother me whatsoever. I think it's more so a bit of a pet peeve if you have a Warzone map come out in November or December, and then you see multiplayer maps from that experience added like 4 or 5 seasons later. I'd much rather have it to where if a new Warzone map gets added in during that same season, they'll also add in a section or two into multiplayer. I think that's probably a better way to keep the game fresh instead of reusing an environment that's been played for 6+ months in a later season. But while on the topic of Rebirth, I do want to talk about Lockdown, an LTM that was available for Vandal for quite some time, and it gets rotated in here and there. I'm a big fan of this. I think if you guys out there looking to level up weapons or earn some XP, you probably jump into Plunder or even Vandal Lockdown. We're finally going to be getting a Rebirth Lockdown, right? I was sad that we didn't get it for Ashika, but better late than never to add this into the game. Maybe Fortune's Keep will end up getting support for this at some point in the future, but I'll put some clips on screen of how Lockdown works in case you guys weren't aware. It's pretty simple. You get a big piece of the map cut off, and right when you spawn in, there's select areas that you have to go, and there's a good, 5 objectives you can capture for points, similar to Hardpoint, but a Warzone version, right? And you have unlimited respawns. You can spawn in with your loadout. It's, again, an alternative to Plunder if you guys just want to spawn right in with the weapon that you want to level up, or you're trying to record, let's say, a bundle review, and you just want to spawn in with the blueprint instead of waiting to get your loadout. It's a really fun mode that, again, will just keep up the high-paced gameplay that Rebirth is known for, but on limited points of interest on the map. Maybe it'll be the whole map, though. They could change it a bit from the way Vandal worked, because Vandal obviously supported Battle Royale. It was a much bigger map than your typical Resurgence experience, so maybe with Rebirth Lockdown, they'll just have the whole map available. But yeah, this is generally what Vandal Lockdown was like, and we're going to get a Rebirth variant in the next few weeks. Now, circling back to multiplayer for a second to round out this video, we're obviously getting a mode called Escort for multiplayer. Funny enough, the elements of Escort that we're going to be seeing for 6v6 are already available in MW3 via the war mode. So in the second war map that we ended up getting a little while ago, which I'm a big fan of, by the way, there's actually a portion of that map that requires you to escort a maw. And yeah, you can say, okay, it's just going to be what we saw in the war mode, but on 6v6. That's true, but then there's also a mode called Payload that we got back during the Warzone 1 era that is referred to directly in the blog post. So I want to say this mode's probably going to come back to Warzone at some point. It was awesome to play over on Rebirth back during Warzone 1. It was obviously available on the big map as well, if I'm not mistaken, but we can already see a pretty good preview of what this mode's going to be like in MW3 multiplayer. So hopefully you guys are excited for that. But last but not least, there's a multiplayer map called Grime also getting added to the game. I believe this is based off of the final campaign mission in Modern Warfare 3 that takes place in London. So yes, if you wanted to go to the UK for an MP map, you're going to be able to do that with Reloaded. And I think it's cool how, at least with Modern Warfare 3's sake, they're bringing in original 6v6 maps that we haven't seen before. They're bringing in some remasters. They're also bringing in some repurposed areas that are either in Warzone or from campaign. They're really spicing things up and providing us with a variety of environments that will really never get stale. I mean, they launched this game with 16 remastered maps. Whether you guys like it or not, these were the most heavily requested multiplayer maps to be remastered for Call of Duty, right? The MP selection from MW2 2009, they got all that out the way off of the rip on launch, and then since Season 1, they've been focusing on completely new maps or your occasional reimagining or repurposed map here and there. They've done a phenomenal job with content across the board, and honestly, I'm really excited for the mid-season update because there's something releasing for absolutely everybody, as I covered in some previous content. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the early gameplay previews we have thus far for Season 3 Reloaded? What are your thoughts on the upcoming maps, game modes, and even features that are really going to spice up May 1st? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.